Okay, call for meeting order. First item is roll call.
Alderman Bamman.
Present.
Alderman Bass.
Here.
Alderman Headley.
Here.
Alderman Stratton.
Here.
Alderman Totten.
Here.
Alderman West.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, next item will be invocation led by Darrell Jones of Crossroads Church, followed by pledge of allegiance from Alderman Totten.
Let's pray together. God, we again give you thanks. We're here today. We thank you for life and breath and the opportunity to serve you and to serve our fellow men. I thank you for our aldermen, our mayor, our city staff, their time and their efforts and energy on behalf of our community, and for the time that they'll spend tonight deliberating, making decisions for not just a few, but for many. And so I just pray that as that weight of responsibility sits on them, that they would have good discernment, wisdom, and make good choices that benefit us not just in the short term, but for the long haul. We thank you so much for this community and for the opportunity we have to live here, and just help us to use our gifts and our talents to the best of our ability. In the name of Jesus, amen. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next item is the approval of the agenda.
No changes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Next item is police officer oath of office. Okay, this for Michael Statt. Come forward. Seeing no proclamations, move on to citizens' participation. We ask that citizens who wish to address the board, please come forward to the microphone and podium and give your name and address for the record. Do you have anyone who wishes to address the board this evening?
I do, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
My name is Jim Cook, which most of you know other than Alderman Bass. It's unusual to appear where I am appearing tonight, but I wanted an opportunity to look you all in the eyes and talk to you about what you did. It has been a very challenging and difficult period in my life. I don't know about any of you, but I'd never been fired. 44 years as your lawyer, 45 coming on 6 as a lawyer, working since I was 10. I'd never been fired. And I certainly have never been fired under the circumstances under which I was fired, with no good reason. And I will tell you this, I understand the law as well as anybody in this room, that I served at the pleasure of the mayor and you. I know that. You know that. I was an employee at will. You could fire me for no reason, for the fact that I'm bald, or anything. I want to remind you, as I go through just a very brief summary of what happened, of something that I learned from the time I was young, Sunday school, through Boy Scouts, through the United States Army, through law school, and that's integrity. And integrity is defined by Webster as the quality of being honest, having strong moral principles, a moral uprightness. Integrity is a personal quality which we hopefully aspire to achieve. It means doing the right thing, having a moral compass. Now, I submit to you that I never would have been happy to have left your employment, because I love this city. I still love this city. I love what has happened. I love what I did. I am particularly proud of what I did in the municipal court. And I will remind you as we go through this two documents I'm going to refer to, that no one has ever to date made any complaints to me about my service to you as your city attorney. And Paul and his firm will hopefully continue to carry that mantle well. I have utmost respect for my successor. Nothing critical of him other than the letter he wrote. But I want to tell you that I appreciate and respect what happened. I respect the process. I built, with the help of, Perry's not here, with this police department, with chiefs, with court clerks, a very strong municipal court system here. And you know why I did it? Because I have integrity in the system and in what I do. And the only court that people see, 99% of them, is this court. And I made it my mission to treat people with respect and integrity, particularly the victims of domestic violence, particularly the defendants who have substance abuse problems, domestic violence problems. So when this all came down, it was very difficult for me to digest. It didn't pass the smell test to me. And I don't know what happened. I'll never know what happened. But here's what I want to remind you on some pertinent dates. There was a court proceeding down here, January 23rd. One of the most contentious nights I've had in this courtroom. And one of the cases involved a little girl, 14 or 15 years old, who was here as my witness, and her father was accused of abusing her, striking her, and assaulting her. So I was here, and she was represented by a lawyer. He was represented by a lawyer, the defendant. There was a history of domestic violence. Parents were divorced. And I spent an hour and a half or 2 hours back in the kitchen with this little girl and her mother, listening to her cry, listening to her sob, telling me that she was scared to death of her father. At the end of the evening, reaching out to me and saying, "Where have you been all my life?" That's what she told me. So I made a decision that night, as I'm called to make every night. I made a decision that I wasn't going to put that little girl on the witness stand that night. And I told the lawyer that. I said, I'm not going to have a trial tonight. I'm going to continue this and defer it until we have some traction in the therapy, the reunification therapy. The lawyer said, fine, we'll do that. We'll have you reunification therapy, but I want a trial. I said, I'm not going forward. I told the lawyer what's happening back there. I said, she's crying her eyes out. She's hysterical. I'm not doing it. She said, I want a trial. I said, fine. So we go to the judge, and we present our positions. I told the judge exactly what I told you. The lawyer opposed it and said, we want to try. But I said, Judge, we've agreed there won't be any contact between this little girl and her daddy. I don't care what happens tonight until there's therapy. No problem. Judge agreed with me, continued the case until June. That was on Wednesday. I now learn on Friday, the father, who I think with his lawyer is the genesis of this complaint, filed another complaint in our municipal court alleging that this mother had interfered with his custodial rights because he asked for time that weekend, contrary to what they told me. So, that's on Wednesday night court. The next Monday, I'm down here for board meeting, sitting where Joe is. We go to exec session. If you recall, everybody except Alderman Bass was there. And we had discussions. And the board asked me for certain advice and if I would help in certain things. Of course I would. That was on a Monday night, 28th of January. Next day, I got a call from Ryan. He said, the mayor wants to have a conference call. I said, fine. I called him back, didn't get him. Next day we connected. I assumed it was for some of the things we discussed in exec session. So on Wednesday the 30th, I'm talking to the mayor and Ken, and I'm informed that there's a complaint by a citizen and that there had been a complaint that defendant's personal information had been shared with Melody Smith, who is employee of Midwest ADP. I told the mayor, I told Ken, I'm surprised, I'm disappointed, I want to know who made the complaint. Mayor said, I can't tell you. That's on a Wednesday. I followed up for the first time of four requests to know who made the complaint, what did they say, so I can at least prepare a response. So I then got an email from the mayor, and I'm going to just tell you very briefly what happened. First, it was dated February 10th. This is from the mayor. There was a circumstance that occurred at municipal court that was witnessed by staff members that ultimately deprived the defendant of the right to go to trial in a timely manner. It appeared that the attorney representing the defendant was going to file a written complaint, but they have since declined in fear of retaliation. So for that one, we won't be going any further in the eyes of the board. Okay? Now that's on February 10th. Bear in mind, I still don't know what happened, who said it. By this email, I figured it out. Now, I'm going to ask you something. Your employer comes to you, Alderman Headley, and says, I've had a complaint about you, and I'm going to have to suspend you. Well, the first thing one would do if you have a complaint made is say, what is it? And would you like to hear my response? Would you like to hear any of the facts on the other side? That didn't happen. Mayor Todd, and I know I'm directing you as a board, and it troubles me because I know some of you better than others. And I have a gut feeling that had you known the facts, and you can only tell the truth one way, and the facts are only the facts. If you had known the facts, I am fairly confident you would not have taken action to suspend me, then fire me, after having the mayor tell me that the board isn't going to go any further on that. But no one did that. No one had the courtesy, had the integrity. And I'm looking at the mayor because he's the one that put my head on the block. He didn't have the integrity to ask me, hey, Jim, we've never, ever, in 44 years, had a complaint about you. Ever. Now, would you expect that sometime in 44 years, I'm going to make somebody mad enough to make a complaint that they didn't feel like I treated them fairly? I would have thought so. That didn't happen. Except this time. So I get suspended. The second reason that was given was that I supposedly participated in conferences in that conference room with Melody Smith from Midwest and with Kathy Reynolds, the victim advocate employed by the police department. Chief Beal apparently said that he received that complaint. Let me make sure. There was a complaint made to Chief Beal that Midwest ADP was being included in the proceedings of nearly all prosecutor defense conferences. Since that complaint was made, there was concern the process was compromised, so we were looking into it further. Okay. So right now, February 10th, we have a complaint that really wasn't a complaint, and well, it wasn't a complaint for fear of retaliation. And I will tell you, categorically, if I had known about the complaint, there would have been retaliation. There would have been pushback from me, and I would have confronted that person with the facts. Because I didn't make the decision that we wouldn't have a trial that night, as the mayor concluded without any facts. The judge made that decision. I didn't arbitrarily say, I'm not doing it. I said, I'm not doing it because she doesn't want to testify, and I'm going to ask the judge if we can continue. But as we sit here, February 10th, complaint number 1 doesn't make a difference. Complaint number 2, and I think I told the mayor this, Melody Smith is the director of her program, and we have 3 kinds of cases that involve treatment and education. Substance abuse, DUI, which is substance abuse, and domestic violence. Virtually every case we have, when those kinds of charges, involve lawyers who are defending the people. And for years and years and years, I tried to get lawyers to sign up with her program and other programs after they came in and said, what can we do? And they never would do it. They just come out here, they avoid here, leave. So we're always backing up. So I started 2 or 3 years ago having Melody available, come in and say, here's the case, what can we do on this case? We've got a guy with a record, what can we do? Oftentimes, this is a surprise to no one, lawyers won't tell me all the facts about their client. Has your client been convicted before? Is this his second offense? I don't know, I didn't bring his record. Many times, Melody would say, let me check the court file. And many times she would tell me, here's the history. And then I would say, Melody, what kinds of programs do we have available for this defendant? Because my goal is to educate and rehabilitate. And then Melody and Kathy would help us and the lawyer fashion a program that works, hopefully. Now, if Chief Beal had a problem with that, he should have come to me at some point and said, I had a complaint. Did he do that? Nope. He didn't bother to tell me until this came out February 10th. I have no idea when that first surfaced, what was said. Nobody's had the decency, integrity to ask Melody. No facts. So that's number 2. Number 3 is even more perplexing to me. The mayor says the final concern, parentheses, I forgot to mention when we talked on the phone, was related to the amount of dismissals made at the prosecutor's level over the previous year. This was brought to our attention in a particular related to a DUI dismissal. So staff is now preparing those numbers for the board. February 10th. Now I will tell you that's a new one. Never heard that before. No one's had the common courtesy to come to me and say, hey, what happened on that dismissal? What were the facts? I still don't know. I don't know what was reported last fall to you, but I was still your prosecutor. I was still coming down here and working for you to protect the integrity of the system, and no one had the decency to even mention to me that there was some kind of an investigation. Now, I asked the mayor, as I told you, I asked him 4 times to give me some facts as their basis for what they did. And you remember back in January, the board, apparently back in the fall, the board decided that it was going to go out for requests for qualifications for my job. Well, and I've told Mayor, I've told the board, I've told everybody, that's fine. What I didn't know at the time, and I didn't know it until Ryan told me in February by email, is that the decision had been made to do that in November, but that the mayor had instructed him not to tell me until he could tell me. The mayor forgot to tell me until January 28th. The same day that I appeared in that room with you, the same day we talked about me doing some work, no one told me that. Now, you say to me, what difference does that make? We don't owe you an explanation. I get it. But it would come back to integrity. If you're gonna get rid of it, if you're gonna tell me to go put me out to pasture, have the common decency, Mayor, to tell me. You don't have to go through this charade of, and Joe, I think it was a very artfully drafted letter that the mayor sent me that, there's no way the mayor wrote this letter, but I will tell you this. The thing that most troubles me about this letter dated February 28th is that you said to me, the city has received no written complaints regarding you or your conduct. As there are no pending or resolved written complaints, the city cannot provide you any copies of those complaints. The city received verbal complaints, which may fairly be characterized as complaints. Yeah, I get that. We don't get to the genesis. I asked for the complaints. It doesn't have to be in writing or not. It has to be a complaint. I had a right to know. And you didn't tell me that. Regarding your request into an investigation into prosecutorial dismissals, there is no current or pending investigation resulting from these comments. The city foresees no reason that this would change absent a significant and unexpected change in circumstance. Because there is no pending current investigation, the city cannot provide you with the name of the person conducting the investigation. Last fall, a review of prosecutorial dismissals was requested and presented to the board. A copy of that report can be provided, but will not be available until next week due to a staff member being on vacation. While we understand this may be unwelcome news, you have been aware that the city is exploring its options regarding city attorney and city prosecutor. And then you proceeded to tell me that I don't have a contract with you. We all knew that. I didn't have any term. I knew that. As a client, we always retain a right to choose our legal counsel. I get that. I've known that for a long time. That's why I work so hard for you. And then it says, the letter, because any number of potential reasons may have been considered by the individual members of the board, that's you, in arriving at the decision to explore different options for our city attorney and prosecutor, it is simply impossible to provide a clear list of those reasons considered. What is clear is that the city, can do what it has done. I get it. You can do anything you want to do. And you did. Now, I can't do anything about that. I might, but I haven't decided what to do yet. I will tell you this. There was nothing I enjoyed more than representing this city and being down here for 44 years, 2 Mondays a week. I gave up a lot of my life, a lot of my family, to build this court system. I built a reputation second to none. You can call any lawyer in Jackson County and ask about his or her experience in this court, and you will find no one who complains, other than this lawyer who went to the mayor and someone and complained, with not good cause and with, I think, an ulterior motive. Now, I can't tell you either how much I've agonized over what happened. There's not a day that has gone by since January 30 I haven't thought about it. And I want to ask you something. If someone came up to you and said, Jim, what happened? Why'd you get suspended? And I can't give them a reason. And I'll tell you something, folks. Suspension to me brings with it a question of what did you do wrong to get suspended? You don't get suspended unless you do something wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. I've never done anything wrong in this city. So for the mayor to tell me and tell others that I was suspended offends me. It hurts my reputation. It hurts my feelings. I didn't work 44 years to this city. As long as I did, more than half of my life, longer than most of you have been alive, to be treated this way. And I'll ask you one thing as I close. When I started as a young kid, going through all the things I did, one thing I remember as early as anything was the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I will hope that for the rest of your tenure, you remember that. Because I would hope that whoever comes after me, whether it's a city attorney or the maintenance worker or anybody in this employ, that you treat them with more respect and integrity and professionalism than you treated me. I will never forget my service down here. I'll never regret a time I was here. What I do regret is what happened to me and the way the mayor treated me. And I can't hold each of you responsible. I'm not going to do that. This isn't about retribution. This is about accountability. And I think the mayor did the wrong thing. He had a choice. He didn't have to believe an unsolicited, baseless complaint after 44 years and say, you're suspended. So I say to the mayor, you should have stepped up. And I say to the board, if you didn't like what I was doing, don't play games with me. Don't go through this charade of we're going to have a request for a proposal if we didn't have a contract with you. This train started back in November. And maybe someday I'll find out why and how. But it started in November. And it ended January 28th, 30th, when you suspended me. And in closing, I'll say this, and it's with regret that I had to come here tonight, but I didn't get where I am in my life as one of the best lawyers in the city, one of the most fair prosecutors in the system, without integrity. And I wanted to look at each of you that know Alderman Bass and express my feeling. The same way I would have expressed my feeling if you'd had the common courtesy, Mayor, to ask me for an explanation, to ask me to explain. Can you help me out on this, Jim? I got to. So that's what I'm perplexed about. I hope to see you all again sometime. I don't know when. I thought long and hard about how hard I wanted to push back on this. And I haven't reached a conclusion yet, to be honest with you. My reputation is the only thing I have. That's all I have. Lawyers, as Paul will tell you, if we don't have a reputation and people can't trust us by looking us in the eye and shaking our hand, we haven't got anything. And I will submit to you, you won't find anybody in this Kansas City area that has a better reputation. There are many who do, same as mine, but who are more, who serve with more integrity than I did. So for that, I'm disappointed I'm leaving. I wish Paul well. I'm disappointed in you, Mayor, because I think you dropped the ball, and I will never forget it. I will never forget how you didn't step up and stand up and show me some integrity. Thank you. Oh.
Anyone else wish to address the board?
Can I come by? Sorry, never mind.
So, I'm the Director of Operations at Midwest ADP. I started out as receptionist front desk. I've worked there for 16 years. I've been coming out to court here off and on for 15 years. So I know, I did your police academy, I was a VIPS for a while. So it's outside of my job, I've also been active in the city. I have very high regard for Jim. And for my role being brought into this just makes me sick. Really just hurt my feelings, because to imply that what we did was wrong is just baseless. And I really thought someone would reach out to me and ask me what it was we do. This is not the only court I do. And sitting by the prosecutor in the other court that I do is common, asking me questions about what's out there, because as a company, not only do we know what we do, but we know the other resources in the community that are above and beyond what we do. And so that's the role that I played in there, and I play in my other court, is to guide into, based on what I hear in the circumstances. It's not cookie cutter what we do. And to know the details helps me to know what to recommend. And I don't just recommend our company, I recommend all kinds of resources that the Kansas City area has for the defendants, because the goal is to provide them what's best to help them get to where they need to be. So me sitting in there, while somebody may not have liked it, there was nothing wrong in what we did. It is not the only court I do it in, and my goal is only to provide guidance of what I know is out there as resources for the defendants and the recommendations. So me being pulled in the middle of it was really disheartening, and that nobody bothered to ask me what it is we do, what it is I do, what I did in that room. I was really disappointed that nobody asked me any questions. So if you have any, or if I've answered anything you might have wondered about what my role in this was, I would be happy to answer that. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board? Okay. Seeing none, move on to the consent agenda.
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda.
I have a motion from Alderman West to approve the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Alderman Totten. Any discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Seeing no previous business, move on to new business. We have fireworks permit. First will be for the Grand Valley Band Parents Association.
Mayor and members of the board, we have 2 fireworks permit applications to consider this evening. We have Mr. Ben Stowe here from the Band Parents Association, and Ms. Tasha Lindsay is here from the Green Valley Partnership in conjunction with the Boy Scouts, correct? So both of these organizations have been receiving fireworks permits from us for many years. I have the paperwork completed for both of the organizations. Everything I need is in. The only change to note this year is the Band Parents Association would like to move their site from the school district property to Price Chopper. They've gone through all the proper, paperwork to make sure it's zoned appropriately. They have the proper paperwork from Price Chopper allowing them on the property. So both of these applications are complete and whole and ready to be considered by you all tonight with a motion.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, we might. We can start with the Band Parents Association.
The first would be the Grand Valley Band Parents Association. Anyone have any questions for that? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor, is there an issue with, so all the paperwork as far as fire code and everything, putting it that close to Price Chopper, has that all been passed or okay?
So part of the application process, both groups have to reach out with CJC and get site plan approval. And so that has occurred. I think I have it through an email in here that Eddie Staffel, right, had signed off on that.
No, it was actually
No, it was somebody else.
Daryl's.
Okay. Is that issue?
Any other questions on it? I'll entertain a motion to approve the Band Parents Association permit then.
So moved.
That's from Alderman Headley, second Alderman West. Any discussion then on that permit? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Next permit then will be for the Grand Valley Partnership. Again, you have all their,
I have all their paperwork. This location remains the same at the southwest corner of Buckner-Tarsney Road and Eagles Parkway, so, same location as it has been for many years.
okay. Any questions? I'll entertain a motion then to approve the one for the Grand Valley Partnership.
So moved.
Motion Alderman West, second Alderman Finley. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Let's pass now. And that's it
That's it.
for new business. Next item then will be under presentations. We have 2019-2020 Employee Health Benefits Review.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, I'm going to have Clela Holland go over the renewal information that we received from Midwest Public Risk.
Just a little bit of a background. We, the city, joined Midwest Public Risk in 2017 for our health benefits. The NPR organization represents 180 plus public entities in Kansas and Missouri for health benefits and risk management needs, such as general liability, property liability, and workers' comp. As staff was preparing the 2019 budget last year, we were told to expect a double-digit increase to benefits at renewal. Not knowing the exact number, a 13% increase was included in the 2019 budget. NPR board members and Finance Advisory Committee reviews the budget, the benefit renewals in depth yearly and provides the renewal rates to the city by April 1st annually. The renewal rates that are going to be presented to you this evening and a resolution on the April 22nd agenda are right here, and this was a quick turnaround from what we had received on April 1st to tonight. And so here comes the thought. NPR's overall increase across the board, across all entities, was 17.8%. The reason for such a high increase is NPR has experienced unusual frequency of claims of more than $100,000. This rate increase is substantially higher than anything that NPR has seen. The city offers employees two plans, the Open Access and the Choice Fund. NPR's overall increase to the Open Access plan was 18.5%. And due to the Grand Valley's overall claim experience, we experienced a 16.5% increase to that. So just a little lower than what NPR had across the board. On the Choice Fund, NPR had an increase of 21.5%. And again, due to Grand Valley's overall claim history experience, Choice Fund was a 19.5% increase. The rates for dental and vision did stay the same, so there will be no increase to that. The budgeted increase that was included in the 2019 budget was $67,470. Based on current enroll numbers, the 2019 renewals will be 24,393 new allocations for the second half of this year. This number, it is important to note that this number could fluctuate depending on employee elections from employee to employee spouse to employee children or family, or vice versa, whatever meets the employee's needs. So, again, this percentage of increase is higher than what we wanted to see, but we did anticipate the higher increase, and so we did include it in the budget. Did include a 13% increase in the budget for 2019. Any questions?
job.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Clearly, is NPR self-insured?
Yes, we are. There.
So, Khalil, on the, numbers here, I was trying to write
Yes.
some of the stuff you were saying.
Uh-huh.
So the numbers for 2018 in red there, is it
Mhm.
just a matter of the delta between 2019, 2018 that we have to consider
Yeah, so
the increase on?
yes, although this shows the entire increase of 91,959, but we had already budgeted 67,470. So the difference is 24,393, barring any changes in enrollment.
That's what, just trying to keep it.
Yeah, it's always kind of a crapshoot when we're doing the early in the, well, late in the budget process. You have to realize their plan year starts July 1. That's their budget year also. So by the time that we were wrapping up our board budget hearings, I was hearing that the renewal rates were going to be coming back probably a double digit just because of the experience of the entire pool over the year. So for that reason, we took a 13% increase into consideration and put that into the budget for the last 6 months of the fiscal year. But it's always makes it difficult, lining our fiscal year up with theirs and what the rate increase is. I do not expect any budget increase or any modification to have to come from this. I think that we'll be able to cover it through either attrition or some type of transfer in the fund. We've had quite a few spots that have been vacant for, community development director. We're going to be hiring the finance director. But I think all in all, we'll be able to cover it with what was allocated this year.
So net, we're worst case talking $2,000 extra a month overall, over budget, over what we budgeted, basically, is what we're coming down to.
Yes, yeah. If you're looking at the net of what we budgeted versus what the actual will be.
Well, that's a whole lot better number than the difference between the two red numbers on there.
Yes.
Red numbers jump out at you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? I will say I sit on the board of NPR, so I know this isn't a number that they just throw out there. It's also a number that we had to vote to approve for all of the member entities. So it's not taken lightly whenever you cast a vote. There's so many people around the table, 12 people around the table, voting on the insurance and health premiums for over 180 other agencies. So if there was a way to do it less expensive, we would have worked on that.
Seeing nothing else then, and no public hearings, move on to ordinances.
The next item on for this evening would be the second reading of Bill number 19-09. This would be an ordinance amending Section 700.070 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Grain Valley, Missouri, pertaining to the disconnection in the event of delinquency, deposits, reconnection, delinquent bill in general.
I move that we accept Bill B 19-09 for its second reading, making the ordinance number
2462.
Okay. I have a motion from Alderman West to approve Bill B 19-09 for its second reading, making ordinance 2462. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Headley. Alderman Bannon. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this is just a reminder from the first read, but all we did in this was some housekeeping, changed reconnection charge to the word service fee, and identified the fact that fee is associated with costs that we have processing for the water accounts. If you have any additional questions, myself or Ms. Bowden can answer them.
Any questions or discussion?
Does that include their difference in their deposit?
This is just related to if somebody has their water shut off, it'll be it's a $25 reconnection fee essentially, but we're changing it from a reconnection charge to calling it a service fee, yeah.
Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Okay, Mayor, your next vote then would be for
Roll call.
the roll call vote to approve, bill number 19-09 as ordinance number 2462. Alderman Bammon,
Yes.
Alderman West,
Yes.
Alderman Headley,
Yes.
Alderman Bass,
Yes.
Alderman Totten, Alderman Stratton. 6-0, Mayor, the ordinance is approved. Mayor, the next item on the agenda for this evening is the first reading of bill number 19-10. This is a first reading of this bill. It is an ordinance amending Chapter 600 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Grain Valley, Missouri, pertaining to alcoholic beverages.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept bill number B-19-10 for its first reading and bring it back for its second reading by title only.
I have a motion from Alderman Bannon to approve Bill B-19-10 for its first reading, bring it back by title only for its second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman West. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, as committed previously, staff has reviewed Chapter 600, which is the chapter that covers alcoholic beverages and how they relate to permitting and usage within the city. I know that Chief Beal has worked on this, but specifically Teresa has kind of championed the process, and she's going to be available to answer any questions. I would delve into it, but as you can see on the pages that follow, it's completely redlined and marked up for your review. You've got a clean copy and then a marked up copy afterwards.
You can hit a few highlights.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind summarizing or hit the highlights.
So you all thoroughly enjoyed reading every page of that. So I think we started this process back in October with a commitment that we would have it ready for renewals, which are coming up here in a couple weeks. The notices will go out. Some big points that have been changed from the liquor code for your approval. Non-intoxicating beer has been removed. This is no longer regulated by the state. And I should add that this has been sent to Auburn Municipal Law, and they've looked through all of it as well after we've kind of gone through our changes. So, a big change, you'll notice a lot of red lines around the classes of licenses. We've updated those classes. We've kind of condensed them, looking at other cities and what they've done, and tried to make them more succinct and make sense. We've also added a few licenses specifically for the option to manufacture the different types of alcoholic beverages. We've added a license for wine tasting, because that currently wasn't regulated. And we've also clarified a little bit about catering licenses. You'll also notice that the 3 a.m. license, as we call it around here, used to be Class M. It's now Class L, and in the code it's limited now to future approvals only being for renewals only. So once this is passed, as you'll remember, we put a stop to those, a pause on them back in the fall. Once this is approved, those will no longer be eligible for new licenses in the future. Chief Beal extensively worked on the employee permit cards by the drink establishments, and so this requires anyone serving in a licensed establishment for by the drink to come to the police department, have a background check, and have an actual permit card. And there will be a fee for that. We removed the population limitations on issuing licenses, so when this code was written way back when in the first time, classes of licenses were assigned so many per population, and as we're growing, we took that out and figured we could address those as they come to us individually. And we also matched our local regulations to the state for issuing licenses near schools or churches. One thing to note, I noticed when I was looking through this one more time today, on section 600-270, kind of a minor change, but just matching with the rest of the code, we've taken the actual fees out of the code and have referred, in the code back to the comp, fee schedule. The reason we're doing that is if we need to change a fee from time to time, we don't wanna have to go back and change not only the comp fee schedule, but also the ordinance itself. And so I noticed in section 600-270, we missed one of those. So I will be adjusting that wording. It just says right now, it's talking about transfer expanding licenses, that they have to submit a form and a fee of $50. So I will redline that out to say, based on the comp fee schedule. So those are kind of the highlights. There's obviously a lot more that's been changed throughout this code, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
You have any questions? All right. Seeing none, all in favor, then please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. 6-0, first.
6-0, first reading has been approved. We'll be bringing that back for second reading at your next regularly scheduled meeting. Mayor, the next item on the agenda for this evening is the first reading of Bill number 19-11. This is an ordinance amending the 2019 comprehensive fee schedule of the city of Grand Valley, Missouri.
Mayor, I move that we accept Bill B 19-11 for its first reading, bring it back by title only for its second reading.
I have a motion, Alderman West, to approve Bill B 19-11 for its first reading, bring it back by title only for its second reading. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Bannum. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, as Ms. Ozenbaugh previously referred to, this is the comprehensive fee schedule where we have added in the fees for liquor permits. It was removed from the section 600 previously, and it's more appropriate for it to be in a fee schedule anyway. So all you're doing is approving the fees for liquor licenses, liquor cards, that sort of thing, as you can see in Exhibit A that was provided.
And I will say to you, I laid out a new copy tonight on your areas that has those two $50 fees added back in. That was not in the copy that went out last week.
Do you have any questions?
Are these in line, these particular fees, especially the new ones that you brought up around manufacturing, distilling and all that? Are those in line with other cities? Is that what you follow?
Yes, that's a good question. It's hard to kind of, since we changed the classes a little bit, it's hard to apples to apples with what our fees used to be compared to now. But we looked specifically at Blue Springs when going through this, and so the fees that stayed the same are the licenses that were comparable. We were spot on with what they're charging. The new fees, we went ahead and used the rates that they are using as well. So I think you'll find they're comparable.
Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
6-0, Mayor, that first reading has been approved, and this will be coming back before the board for second reading at your next regularly scheduled meeting.
Next item then will be resolutions.
Mayor, this next item is Resolution 19-21. This is a resolution by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Grand Valley, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to enter into an agreement with Utility Service Company, Inc. to provide maintenance for city-owned water towers.
I move that we accept the resolution number R 1921 as read.
I have a motion from Alderman Totten to approve resolution R 19-21. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Alderman Headley. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, this is the same company that we use to service our water towers. Goes back to actually 2005. We're just signing up for the projects that we budgeted for. If you have any specific questions, Mr. Murphy can answer them.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Mayor, Resolution 19-21 has been approved 6-0.
All resolutions. Next item, city attorney's reports.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, I have 2 items for you this evening. The first is just a recap from last time. If you'll recall, I distributed some brochures for a city officials training conference that we will be putting on. The one that we will be doing in most close proximity to Grain Valley will be actually at MPR's Education Center in Independence. That training session will be on Friday, April the 19th. So it's actually before your next meeting. So if someone could pass that along to Alderman Bannon's successor, that would be great. Alderman Bass, hopefully you got a copy of that. And it's not just for newly elected officials. It's for, all elected officials, staff. It's a great refresher course. We do go over training from 9 in the morning till 2 in the afternoon. We provide breakfast and lunch. It's a $20 fee just to help us offset our costs for that. And we go through a pretty significant arrangement of municipal issues. I did confirm this afternoon with the Missouri Municipal League that they have qualified this training program for 5 hours of the Missouri Governance Institute, the MGI credits. So if any of you are pursuing a certified local government official status, this would qualify for 5 of the hours that you would need towards that status. So it's a great opportunity to do that. We are doing 5 of them this year. The next closest to you would probably be Windsor, Missouri, and Platte City, Missouri. So Independence is probably the best one. Each of them are on Fridays this year. Oh, yep, thank you. The date is April 19th, so it's 2 weeks from, right, it's a week from this Friday. Wow. It's a week from this Friday.
Do you have the dates for the other 2 already set, or is that still pending?
They are set. I don't have internet access at the moment. We've got them. You got them right there? Okay, thank you.
April 26th, Jefferson City, May 10th, Windsor, May 10th, Rolla, May 17th, Platte City.
And Mr. Murphy just reminded me also, for members of the MPR insurance pool, which you are, actually MPR offsets the cost of that because they like to have their city officials trained. And so they've been great partners with us. I think this will be the 4th year we've held this training at their facility, and they actually provide the lunch at that and then cover the cost for all MPR members who attend. So that's a great benefit, so no cost to the city on that.
So what you're trying to say, Joe, is if all the board participates in that, the insurance increase is only $96,127.
You'll have to bring that up with Mr. Norwood, I'm sure. So. The second item I have for you this evening, Mayor, is I just would like to make a recommendation after some observation at meetings, and this would be with respect to the process that the city, that the board currently uses to adopt its ordinances and resolutions. My recommendation to you would be that you would change the logical flow of how you do your ordinance approvals, and I would also recommend doing away with the reading of titles of resolutions. That's a summary. A little bit more specifically, for ordinances, at this time you are currently making a motion to make and accept a first reading of an ordinance. In fact, actually, you have me read the ordinance before any motion is made. Is that correct? Yeah, so I read the ordinance, then you make a motion to accept it and to bring it forward for a second reading before you've had any discussion whatsoever on the topic. My recommendation to you would be to actually do a motion for the first reading, have your discussion at that point. And the reason is that in the basis of these parliamentary rules is Robert's rules, and the idea would be that if for some reason an ordinance is not something that this board would be interested in bringing forward, you would not want to even have a first reading on it. It would essentially die for lack of interest, essentially, with the board. So my recommendation would be is that you have a motion for the first reading. You would then have your discussion, and then, once you've had the discussion, you could then do a vote. At the end of that vote, assuming that it was a positive vote in that circumstance, you could then do a motion to accept that first reading and bring back the item for the second reading at your next regularly scheduled meeting. That way, logically, you haven't already essentially introduced a bill into the governing body before you've even had an opportunity to review it. So I would just make that recommendation. Then obviously at your next regularly scheduled meeting, you would again do a motion for the second reading of the ordinance. You would then have further discussion, we would assume that you've done some due diligence on it in the meantime. Maybe you've had citizens reach out to you with concerns, things like that you could then share. And then before you make a final vote on, to approve the second reading, you would have that information handy. And then finally, you would do a roll call vote, which is required by statute for all ordinances, to finally approve your ordinances. And I will tell you that the reason I get flustered sometimes when I'm reading this is it's very different than the process that I'm used to following in the other 34 cities that we're the city attorney for. So that's why I would make these recommendations just from that flow standpoint. The last point I would make with respect to resolutions is resolutions actually are essentially just a written down version of a motion and vote that you would have in a meeting. So they are not required to have the same procedural emphasis, if you will, that ordinances do. Ordinances are actually the law of the city once you pass them in that circumstance. Resolutions, however, are simply written down motions and votes, and for that reason, you don't necessarily have to read them in full by title only. There is no statutory requirement for those as there is for ordinances. That being said, it makes sense that you would at least have some sort of a summary. So maybe, if you have a short resolution title, you could certainly still read it, or you could do a summary to say this is a resolution to, we have tonight, to adopt a fee schedule or something like that is what you should do. So again, just for efficiency of your meeting's sake, I would make those recommendations. And I've submitted those to the mayor and staff since our last meeting after making those observations. So that's all I have in there.
Next up is the city administrator and staff reports.
Start with Mr. Murphy.
Mayor, members of the board, I just wanted to give you an update on the RFQ process for the construction manager at risk. That's the method that we are going forward with on the planning and possible construction of new community complex down at the Medwell Farm. The RFQ 2019-03, we got those RFQ responses back on March 20th, and we got 2 responses from that, one from McCown Gordon and one from J.E. Dunn. Upon getting those 2, we then sent out an RFP request to those 2 firms, asking for their general conditions and costs that would be associated with their CMR services. Those responses were due today at 3, and both McCown Gordon and J.E. Dunn did submit those. We've not had a chance to review those yet. And then the last part of that is we do have interviews scheduled, one firm on Wednesday and one on Thursday of this week. So after that, we will combine kind of the services provided and the fees and make a recommendation on which firm to go forward with. And that's something that it's all, the CMR method is something that is fairly recent. It's been allowed by state statutes. So in there, it kind of gives the guidelines on kind of the percentage of the decision that you can use as far as money, and then their service and experience are given. They say it caps, you can only take 60% of your decision towards money or cost of the project, and then the rest would be experience. So it kind of gives us guidelines on that, but we hope to, at the next meeting, have that recommendation back to the board for approval. So we can get going.
Ms. Bowden.
I just wanted to let the mayor and the board of aldermen know that the auditors have finished their field work and they're working on the report, and I should get the draft report this week, and hopefully we have that all completed and ready for a presentation to the board the first meeting in June.
Questions, Ms. Ozenbaugh?
As you all are aware, we had an election last week. So, for those who are not aware, Tom Cleaver won the election for Ward 1. Alderman Totten will remain on the Board of Aldermen for Ward 2, and Alderman Bass will remain on the board for Ward 3. And so we will plan, as long as we receive the official certified election results, to have that transition of the board occur on the next meeting, April 22nd. And as in years past, we will wrap up old business with this new board, or this board recess, and then swear in the new board members.
The only thing that I had, Mr. Mayor, was, I received, comments from you on the elected official guidelines, the operating guidelines. Just wanted to let the board know that, we'll be reviewing those over the next week. So if you have any comments that you, have for the policy or would like to bring to my attention, let me know. We did add a small section relating to social media that's currently being reviewed by legal. The thought, or the hope is that by the next board meeting, this will actually be an action item for the board to go through and formally adopt as their own operating guidelines. The only other item that I would suggest is, or have tonight, as we're going through this year, we're going to be replacing some of the devices that the board has. Let me know. Let me know, one, if you have an aging device, if you're having problems with it, and two, whether you have a specific device that you would like to work off of. We really have kind of two choices that we've narrowed it down to, so we're going to start ordering those probably in the next month or so. So let me know. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Next is Board of Aldermen reports and comments. Alderman Stratton.
Nothing to report this time.
Alderman Totten.
I'd like to say thank you to all those that helped with the campaign and those that got out and voted. I appreciate that very much.
Alderman Bass.
I have nothing.
Alderman Headley.
Nothing at this time.
Alderman West.
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Alderman Bammon.
Nothing to report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
That goes to the mayor's report. I have nothing additional to report. I believe we do have a need for an executive session.
Yes, we have a need for hiring, firing, and disciplining, section 610.020, subsection 3.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn the executive session.
So moved. Second.
Alderman Bammon, second Alderman Headley. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Alderman Stratton. Alderman Totten. Alderman Bass.
Yes.
Alderman Headley.
Yes.
Alderman West.
Yes.
Alderman Bammon.
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned the executive session.